Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, and we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friend Preston Poulter, who right now, if you go to his website, pocketjackcomics.com, which is in the link down below, description, whatever you want to call it, and you actually sign up for his newsletter, he will send you 3 PDF comics of his book, so you could try before you buy. And also, Preston was so gracious that everybody buys from my eBay store is getting a copy of White Lily, issue number 4 of 5. So you could definitely get a free comic when you buy from my store. And what's cool about my shop in particular is that I do sort of have my own exclusive, which is this bad boy in hollow foil. So I bought out the whole run on this bad boy in the hollow foil. There's only 15 of them, and I have all 15 of them. So good luck finding those 15 elsewhere because I control it. So you get that in my store right now. It's in the link down below, description, whatever you want to call it. But everybody gets one of these for free, no matter what you order, as long as it's a comic book. But enough about that, because I have with me JayDee Rosario. So welcome to the show.
What's up, brother? I am happy to be back again. What is this, my fourth time chilling with you?
I think it's the third. It might be the fourth. I don't know. I stopped keeping track.
Either way, bro. Listen, you're at the top of my list for multi welcome backs, right? And I take that, man. I must be doing something right if you're enjoying my company to bring me back so many times, dude.
It's that, or I just don't have guests. No,
I think it's the latter. Yeah, I think it's the latter. I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. You know what I mean? I'm a great feeling.
But obviously, jokes aside, I am very excited to have you back on, and you got a lot of stuff going on. And in particular, you have a Kickstarter going on right now, which is New York versus the World. It's issues 1, 2, 3. I think 3 is the newest one out of the bunch that are coming out. And obviously, before we dive too deep into the Kickstarter and talk about it, I do want to catch everybody up on what it is, because some people are brand new to this book. Some people are saying, hey, what is this book? And so obviously, what is the basic premise of this book before we kind of dissect it a little bit?
Okay. The easiest way to say it is zombies and New York City, right? You can either watch New Yorkers try to survive the zombie apocalypse, or if you hate them, you can watch New Yorkers getting, trash through the zombie apocalypse. So there's a win-win for everybody, depending on how you look at it. But when you go past the curtains and peer through the window, you're going to find out that this is a story about New York City 15 years after the zombie apocalypse occurred. And what happens is they're pretty much the last safe place, because when things went down, they blew the bridges and they flooded the tunnels. Nothing was able to come in or come out. It took them 15 years to clean up the city. And now that they have, they're deciding to let in other survivors. But the question now pops up, do the survivors that are coming in still carry this virus? Or how are they going to be treated when they weren't here for the last 15 years cleaning the place up? When you look at some of the really good zombie stories, there's always that underlying message. There's a subtext, right? They were dealing with either racism or capitalism, like when they were stuck in consumerism, when they were stuck in the mall. This here is kind of dealing with xenophobia. What happens to the people who are on one side of the wall, who are trying to protect their family? And then you have the people who are on the other side of the wall looking to protect their family, right? In that situation, who's wrong? And then you wrap that up in a zombie apocalypse, and you've raised the volatility level, way past 100 on that.
Yeah, let's actually talk about this, because there's a bunch of stuff and a bunch of stories. Obviously, I don't know if you've read DMZ by Brian Wood.
I saw the show with Rosario Dawson, the 5 episodes.
Yeah. I think they made it into a show. I don't know if they made it into a show, but
it was a miniseries. There's no zombies in it, right? It was like political strife.
Yeah. You have 2 factions in America, and in Manhattan, it's a DMZ, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But there's an issue of who's allowed in the DMZ. People are stuck in the DMZ, and you send a journalist in there documenting it, and so there's a lot of stuff that's similar to this. But what is this like? Because obviously you have questions of morality now being played very heavily
100%.
in this. Because I'll be honest with you, if these people, and I'm assuming they have a pretty decent life, all things considering. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to live in this world.
Protected, right? Protected is as perfect as you think you can get.
They have safety and they have security.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring somebody in, it's questions: is this a virus? Is it an undead? What happens when you bring other people in? What happens when you, I guess, touch upon something where, great, somebody came from, Florida and they want to come to New York. Do they have the same values of our current government in New York? And I don't say that as, do they appreciate life the same way? Are they going to fit in? And then also, are they bringing anything of value to this area? And now you're being selective, and you go on an immigration level as well.
So that plays a big part of issue number 3. There is no currency anymore in the world, right? It's what can you bring, or what part of you is of value. So if you don't bring anything, you have to earn your way into the city by becoming what's called a thinner. And a thinner is somebody who lives in the outskirts, in the outer boroughs, to thinning the herds of dead before they reach the gates. So that way they're easier to handle by the time they get there. And you got to spend a certain amount of time out there, depending on how many people you're trying to earn safety for within the walls. Problem is, there are also no prisons in Manhattan. I mean, there are in real life, but for the object, for the sake of this story, there aren't. All life is precious. So, to, I guess, commute your sentence, you have to also work as a thinner. So what happens when you have a family man out there with somebody who's pretty much a serial killer or a mass murderer? Can they get along? Do they have the same objectives? Who really likes being on the other side doing what they do best? And again, you wrap all of that up in a zombie apocalypse, and the questions of morality are there. It's like, who's right in that situation, who's wrong? How far can somebody be pushed before they become what you think is wrong? The only main character in this story is New York City. That's it. If you are the protagonist, odds are against you, right? This is something where the red shirt in Star Trek has a better chance at survival than the captain does. So in issue number 1, where we're heading out to Governor's Island, which is the quarantine zone before you enter the city. In issue number 2, we end up in Coney Island. In issue 3, we end up in another part of Brooklyn by the bridge over there. So we're taking tours all around the city and see what's different from before the apocalypse to what it looks like today.
So let's actually talk about that, because in a lot of ways, and the reason why I bring up DMZ is that DMZ, New York City, is a character in DMZ. And so unlike The Walking Dead, and there's a few other zombie things, obviously The Walking Dead, you have Rick as the main character, and then you have obviously Carl, and you have some other, centralized characters. I mean, Dale for 70 issues. I'm sorry, everybody, if I ruined Walking Dead for you, I apologize. It's been out for 15 years. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna ruin something else for somebody too. Dumbledore dies, so you're gonna have to deal with that. That's been out for 20. So
dude, both of them died in real life. Isn't that messed up, dude? That hurts, man.
It's just
yeah, Michael Gambon just passed away recently, Yeah.
I feel you. I knew the actor of Dumbledore passed away a little while ago.
Yeah.
Wasn't like The King's Speech his last film, I think? Because I thought he was King George, the older one.
I don't know. No, I know he acted after The King's Speech. What did he do? I don't remember. I think he was in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was around the time of King's Speech, but I know there was something after that.
I could be mistaken. I just know he had a short little role in that. But I digress. But going into this, in which that obviously going back to, I guess my question though is that what is that like? Because New York City as a character is very different than, an actual character. Because it sounds weird, but I mean, if there is a city that has a character to it, it is New York.
It's New York, right? And the character changes. It has mood swings from day to night. What could look like a safe zone at night could be, monstrous during the day, and vice versa. So it's taking that, right? It's taking I don't want to say the joy of Coney Island in the second issue. Because if you go to Coney Island today, I don't know, man, it still looks like it's, the backdrop from the Warriors in the 1970s. Make no mistake about it. There was a section that was cleaned up for where the Mets minor league team, the Brooklyn Cyclones, play. But where the actual Cyclone ride is, no matter what time of day you are in, it's wonky over there.
You keep your wallet next to you when you're in that area.
Dude, you don't even bring it out the house if you're gonna go. You take a small little wad of cash, just in case. The first issue we deal with Ellis Island, which was where all the immigrants originally, went back in the 1900s, 1800s, and we use that also as our staging ground for people before they enter the safe zone. Right. So again, there's that duality that we're playing around with. And then
to even go further into this, because obviously I don't even think New York City is the only character. I mean, you could look at things that cross the river. Obviously, you got the Hudson River is in play. I mean, obviously what's across the Hudson is Jersey City's around there. And I know you haven't touched that, but the reason why I bring this up is that technically speaking, I mean, if you have a tall enough building, you seeing Jersey City, and Jersey City could be seeing you. And
so we talk about that in the very opening pages. Like I said, it's the barge coming in with survivors, and just like the little kid who's always checking out the window and a drive with their parents. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? There's a kid doing the same thing, and one of the deckhands comes and explains what they're going to see in Queens, what they're going to see in Brooklyn, what they're going to see if they got into the Bronx, what happens in Staten Island, and Jersey is just it's easier to get across in a boat. So those things are touched on.
Because the reason why I bring this up is because at this point, obviously, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could explore in New York City, and then obviously certain parts are walled off and certain parts are safe, and then other parts, and I say safe because anything could happen, but obviously there is a safe zone, and then there are risque zones, and then there's the real risk, which is everything outside, and there's like dead zones, I would imagine, that haven't been exactly taken care of and haven't been cleaned out yet, and maybe they're being worked on. I don't know exactly, but
they are. Well, excuse me. For intents and purposes of my story, they are. And again, that is touched on, right? We explained that the Bronx is for people who do not want to conform to the society that's growing within Manhattan. So you're survived. You go out there and you try to make your way. Brooklyn, because of Prospect Park and its the proximity to the Brooklyn Bridge, that is where a lot of the agriculture is. Queens, I'll tell you off air what Queens is, what's happening over there, and it has to do.
They're creating a minor league baseball team. They just got to pick up a few prospects for next year.
Yes, the fun part was Staten Island, because there used to be the big dump at Staten Island, and that's where they dump all of the bodies, whether they are dead or dead, right? They're just dumped off in Staten Island. But then we also have things like remember how you'd see images of fishing trowels on the Hudson carrying garbage, right? The concept still remains, but they're not carrying garbage. What they're doing is they're plucking the dead that are floating in the river before they hit the shores, right? And then they're taken to Staten Island. So that image kind of looks like, the ferryman from the River Styx, right? Or the Grim Reaper, just there with a big, not a scythe, but a big pole with a hook blade at the end of it, so he can grab them out of the water. And you'll see that, and it's ominous, but it's also a part of how the city functions, right? And it's, again, going back to the duality of it all. You think it's one thing, but it's really used for something else.
Yeah, because it's very interesting when you start, I guess, having a undead societal government and how it works. And obviously, I mean, the premise of the book, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, and I'm sure there's other safe zones, but New York probably doesn't know it. I'm
Correct.
sure statistically there has to be, but
Yes.
it really is in a pretty big facility that New York is a massive safe zone. Where if you're in Brooklyn and you've earned your way in, or you're living there, you're relatively safe. Where a zombie is not going to be living right next door to you, preferably. In which that it could happen, and I'm sure
You
it
got a
does.
safe distance. You got a safe distance, right? But yes, we will be touching upon what happens if there's a zombie living right next door to you in future issues. Again, I'll tell you that part off air, bud. But yeah, that gets explained. One thing I'm really not doing is not telling you what's happening in the city proper yet, right? You know of it, you hear of it, you'll see it from a distance, but you don't get to see the inner workings for, you can't, you got to bury the lead for a little while.
Because I mean, when I hear the concept, obviously I brought up DMZ for a reason, because DMZ is an exploration of not necessarily its life in a DMZ. So there's a war on one side, a war on the other. Everybody's agreed that New York City is a demilitarized zone. So nothing can come really into the city, nothing can go out of the city. Tunnels are blocked off. They're not flooded, but there's military blocking off tunnels on both sides. And it's life in the city. And so obviously it's very interesting, because to me, what's fascinating about this story and what intrigues me is that, cool, what does life in this city look like on a governmental level, on a function level, and even just how it culturally works? If you have a zombie invasion and apocalypse outside, and you obviously have the threat of that going on, but you're in a safe city and in a bubble, like, what is life like that? That's what's intriguing to me. And that's what's fascinating. Earning your way in. And also, what is the risk if you live in the Bronx? It's probably a lot easier to get into the Bronx than to get into Midtown. Because if you don't want to conform and you want to be like, cool, a zombie could be living next door to me, but I'm a little bit of a serial killer, and bring it on. I'm ready to go, bitches. Let's do this. You might be like,
You'll see very quickly that not everyone is as tough as they think they are. When you got the muscle bound guys running away from the danger in the very beginning of the first issue, you're like,
you got the cute little schoolgirl with the nerdy glasses, like, chainsaw.
Yeah. If they were able to preserve gas. But one of the things that living in New York has showed me is that we're fucked. I'm sorry. After Hurricane Sandy, or even during the pandemic, the city does not do well with stress. And my reason for doing this book was to say, fuck that, this big chip on my shoulder that is New York. Yeah, we'd survive anything. No, Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, and the pandemic showed me, no, no, man, we're gonna eat ourselves up. So what happens to you if you see that, and not that the writing is on the wall, but you try to figure out what the patterns are for survival within those environments, right? And hopefully you never have to experience that in real life. But theoretically, how do I take those concepts and placed them in the zombie apocalypse of set in New York City.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff. And obviously, I mean, I don't want to press too hard because I think that the book is somewhat self-explanatory
Yeah.
on what it's presenting. Not every little intricate detail, but obviously, I mean, it's coming to a safe zone in New York. And then they're basically trying to figure out 15 years after establishing a working system, for lack of a better word. Not a perfect system, but a working system.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of where it's at. And I don't want to push too hard because obviously I think that's kind of the fun is earning your way in, seeing what's going on,
Yes.
functioning and other
Yes.
things, and kind of being surprised at certain things, but also I view your book as being a fun ride and not being something that is I view it as being entertainment and not being like an ode to the greatest writing thing ever. Because unfortunately in comics right now, there are people who are trying to write like the next great American novel. And then there's people who are trying to like just say, look, I just want to write a fun comic
That's it, dude. You know, I'm not going to try to write The Watchmen, you know. I'm not going to try to write The Dark Knight Rises. Seminal works are not going to happen. But will I try to take you on a roller coaster ride and manipulate your emotions and maybe say, damn, that was fucked up? Yeah, I can do that, right? There is a line that I won't cross, right? You're not going to find Hellraiser style as an M in the books, you know, or horror porn like Saw. We can get close to it, but I just gotta try to make it out.
Let me ask this, right? Because this is my issue right now in comics is that, and we're going to dive into Inside Baseball a little bit, is that I feel everybody's trying to write the next best comic book, and they're trying to do Watchmen or V for Vendetta, or they're trying to do Lost Girls. And I know I'm going on an Alan Moore rant here, but or they're trying to do like Blackest Night that Jeff Johns did, or they're trying to do Civil War Marvel, and these are all great books. But I also think, and I'm speaking to a wrestler named Anthony Green, and Anthony Green is a comedic wrestler, and he's called the retrosexual. So he comes out with like Zupa pants. He's got like an 80s mustache, and he's great. And he was on my show, and he was explaining that he can either be champion or he can make a lot of money in wrestling. And there gets a point where Anthony Green's a great wrestler, but there gets a point where he can make $150,000 or he could have a belt to make 30 grand. So, you know, there gets a point where do you want to create something entertaining that will sell, that will move at a table that people will relate to and read and enjoy and buy? Or do you want to write a great comic book that might only sell $5,000 and it costs you $7,000 to make?
And you hit all these awards, but people aren't coming back to you after the awards, right? And because you're in the community, you know, being the winner of whatever award from whatever independent comic book show is not going to bring you money and clout, right? To raise your
easier. I think winning a Ringo isn't going to bring you the clout or the money. I don't think it carries the same weight. I don't.
When you look at Hollywood, right? The reason why excuse me. The Academy Awards, the Oscars, the Golden Globes. If you win that award, then that adds to your resume, right? And your resume leads into your asking price for whatever work you're going to do. Unless you are part of the bigger companies in comic book publishing where you have agents who are booking you, and that happens. I hope people understand that there are agents booking writers and artists out there to work on the top tier titles. It's not, you know, I'm not going to come up out of nowhere and grab that because I have got a great story, a pitch idea. It's not going to happen. So those are the people that when they win the Ringos or maybe a Harvey or whatever else the case is, they can add a couple dollars to their bottom line because their agent is working that for them. But somebody like you or me,
in fact, if somebody won a Ringo, didn't show up to Baltimore to accept it, and was working at a soup kitchen thinking they were going to win it, that would create more buzz than them actually winning it. Because people would say, why is this person not here? Because it would raise questions that people would want to know. And then that person could go on a podcast and do 20 podcasts, and it would create more buzz and create more generation on money.
Damn right. Right. And that's how you game the system. And
That's
so many
exactly
people.
The plan. That's the plan with me. I
So
won't
many people
go to my Ringo Award when I win it. Instead, me are going to be hanging out in a bar in Brooklyn.
Yeah. We're talking about this, and I think about Chadwick Boseman. Before he passed away, I remember him on Black Panther, and this is coming from doing a series of biopics, right? He did Jack Robinson.
Yeah, Jack Robinson.
Right? He did oh my god, the Get Down. What's his name? Oh my god, why am I blanking on his name?
I don't what is this one?
Oh my god. Jesus fucking Christ. Holy shit, now I gotta look him up. He did James Brown. Oh my, why couldn't I think of James Brown? And he did another biopic. I forgot what other biopic. Oh, he did Thurgood Marshall, right? And then he went into he did Black Panther. And he was asked about, lowering himself for a comic book movie. And I remember he said he'd rather have more kids playing with him as an action figure. That meant more to him than an Oscar did on his shelf.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, my whole thing is that, I mean, I just think everybody in comics has forgotten that you want to entertain people and you want to get paid. And I think that, I mean, look, I just want to sell comic books and I just want to get paid.
That's it. I'm not trying to be greedy. I want to make money where I can keep doing comic books my life, and pay my bills, right? That's the plan at the end of the day, bro.
And so I this is my problem right now, where I look at all these people and all I see is them just trying to do the next big thing, and I don't see them making money. And I don't know if I'm missing something. Because again, I run an eBay business where I sell books, and maybe I have a different mindset, but this is where I'm confused. And this is where I think Kickstarter has gotten all jacked up, to be honest. Because I thought the point of Kickstarter was to kickstart a project that you couldn't do yourself because you don't have the money. But if people come together and everybody gives you $12 and 100 people give you $12 or $20, you can now do your project. That's what I thought it was about.
I remember when it first came out, and part of the pitch to me was, you put your numbers together and you see how much it's going to cost you to make the book, right? And then you ask for half of that. So that way you'll have, at worst case scenario, half of the money you need to create your project, right? And then the other half you got to come out of pocket with if it's something that you're really passionate about doing. Over the course of time, folks saw how successful it was when other creators brought finished products to the table. And by doing that, what they were able to do was speed up their timetable for the next release. I'm one of those. I now put out a book every 4 months. I was trying to do it not every 4 months. I put it out every 3 months, right? I was trying to put out a book every other month, but the logistics of that are a headache. Not that we're still not trying to do that. Yeah, we're trying to do that. But if you bring a finished product to the table, right, you're looking at this now as, I know this is a bad word for some, but maybe a pre-order system, right? A pre-order platform. Or in today's age where we are not selling advertising in the printed page anymore to cover your printing expenses, this is going to take the place of that, right? Because advertising revenue would, at the end of the day, bring down your bottom line. So now your cost per unit is a hell of a lot less, right? And you're earning more margin in the wholesale game. A lot of us do this direct to consumer, so we're not making up volume in with those wholesale prices, right? So we don't have to come up with the money for the advertising, but it helps, right? At the end of the day, whatever brings down your bottom line and your cost per unit is going to
I
help.
mean, I agree. I buy wholesale on my
Right?
eBay store, and when I'm
And
buying a book that trades for 15, I get it for 750. All of a sudden, I flip that book for $20. I mean, I'm making a lot more money.
right, or look at it like now that conventions are back up and running, right? And I'm going to be honest, I was scared to do conventions again after the pandemic. I had sick people at home. I didn't want to bring something back to them. Their strength is back up. The air quality is better than it was. Not perfect, but better than it was. A lot of people still got sick at New York Comic Con this year, but we are going back to utilizing that previous business model of raising the money on Kickstarter to print up the book at offset prices. So my cost per unit is a hell of a lot less, right? And we sell the books for $5 cover price. So our margins are up. We're earning 400% more or less per unit, right? So we can make money at the bigger shows like New York Comic Con, and people still aren't thinking it like that, right? They're doing the print on demand books where they're paying
So,
sometimes $3 per
do
unit.
you think though, because to talk about that, I'm going to challenge where if you're brand new and it's your first Kickstarter, you can't. I don't think it's a good idea for you to do offset if it's your first book, it's
No,
your first Kickstarter, and if you're not ready for it. Because if you're not ready, see, I think you're ready for it, right? So if I did my first book, right, that would be a very bad idea for me to go immediately to doing offset printing, especially on my first book, especially because I don't have an audience. But if you're on your 12th Kickstarter, you should start thinking about that because I think in the long term, especially on a first issue, you don't know if it's going to hit or if it's going to flop.
forget it. You don't know if it's good enough, right? You don't. I know a bunch of people, even myself, where their very first works were not ready for prime time, right? The first books that I did were 12-page ash cans, right? We did 5 different 12-page ash cans. From that, we found out about print on demand way back when. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm not one of those, we walk 15 miles in the snow to get to school. No, but there was a point where print on demand, I was introduced to a company out of Jersey called Comics Press. And it was a lot cheaper than places like Brenner, who we were doing offset printing with. Excuse me, not cheaper. Cheaper in the form of your overall buy, right? Because you don't have to do an MOQ, a minimum quantity, right? You're able to do maybe about 100 books, and probably costs you about 2 and change. But then you're selling the book back then for what, $3, $4? The cost of inflation hadn't hit the way it's hit now. It hadn't caught up with it. Excuse me. So you're really not earning much on those books. Now, yeah, once you've got your seed eggs under you and you can tell a better story and your product is a hell of a lot more finished, it has that polish to it, I would say do offset printing, because if you've learned by this point, then you'll understand one of the biggest differences between offset printing and print on demand is long-term sales versus short-term sales, right? You're working towards building a war chest.
It's also the idea that if you have a first issue and you're going to do 4 issues and this is your 4th mini series and you're going to do cons and that you're going to be launching, you're always going to need issue 1, right?
Yep.
It makes sense sometimes to offset print issue 1.
100%.
Maybe you don't offset issue 4 if you're going to go into a trade 3 months later or 4 months later, but maybe
but if you're going to do a year and you've got maybe 6 conventions, right, in between, then all right, you got a shot at it, because maybe you can move 100 issues, right? 100 copies per book, depending on whatever convention you're at. But it's not just sales, right? It's other things that you can do with the offset printing. I want to talk about cost of acquisition for a second. How many sites do you know out there that will charge you X amount of dollars to get a lead, right? And if you're lucky, maybe you've paid $26 per lead. And that for some is
offset.
That's offset, bro.
So Preston sent me 50 of these for free. So this is a $5 book is what it says on it. You could see it, obviously. I mean, I don't know how many people can see it, but this would cost what, like 69 cents offset, if not cheaper?
Depending on how many units you ordered. Yeah, dude. Right? If you're ordering about 3,000 units, it's close to that. It's close to like 79 cents, something like that.
So you don't think that me sending all these things in my packages to clients who are buying $200 or more on average is not a good lead magnet?
100% worth it.
And it's good for me on my level, because guess what happens? My clients say, oh my God, this guy just sent me a free comic. And then Preston gets it, and then he throws something that has a QR code to his email list in there too. So now they can scan it with their phone, and they get White Lily, they get a physical thing, and then they get that little thing in there, and there you go.
How about, let me throw another one at you, right? Because that is a great example, and I've done that with people. That is an amazing example. All right. Something a little bit more immediate. You're at a convention and you're doing a panel. Okay. You're one of the speakers at a panel. Well, before your panel starts, you take your offset books with you, and you have maybe somebody at your team handing out a copy of your book to everyone who's coming into the panel, or you lay down one on the seat. And now when it comes time to talk to you, right, or they ask you a question, you answer the question, but you also reference the book that I've left for everyone on their seats when they showed up. Right. And you're building that connection right there.
This is what I do. And this is what I'm planning to do. If I do, anime cons and I do whatever, I'm going to print a bunch of metal cards. I'm going to put some cool images on them that I own, that are my logo. And I'm going to put all my contact info on it in a metal card. You know why? People don't throw out a metal card. They'll throw out a little tiny thing, but that's the thing. I used to do pins, right? So pins are like 35 cents. So what you do is you pick up 500 or 700 of them, you spend $90, and then you have that for like 3-4 years. And I have a bunch of pins, and guess what? I just pass the bag. I say, guys, take 2 or 3. And people are like, this is amazing. Because guess what? People, when you have 250 people in a room, people are like, free swag? Like, yeah. And then the crazy thing is that what happened when I was at AwesomeCon a little while ago, one of the guys in the room was like, yo, dude, let me just hand them out for you.
Or you do, when you, again, going back to the conventions, right? And offset printing, you see, you sell your mystery boxes at the table, and they're filled with maybe $7 to $10 worth of cost, because you've offset printed or you've printed in bulk with the pins, right? And you can fill it up, and the customer thinks they're getting a great value at $25 a pop, or 2 for $40, right? You're still making almost 100% margin plus, and you're not breaking your bank, dude. And the customers are leaving happy. That's one of my key sellers at the Comic-Con, bro. Mystery boxes pay the tables for me, and they're filled with offset product, or product that's printed up in bulk.
Yeah, I just think that obviously, if you're just starting out, it's a little bit tricky. I think you have to get to a level. So I went through a business expansion, and it took me 10 years to go through a pretty big business expansion in my store. But if I did it 5 years ago, the thing would have flopped. I wasn't ready for it. And so obviously, I mean, I'm not saying don't offset print, but I'm also saying make sure, if you're going to go do it, and this is just my thoughts from a business level, that make sure you're ready for it, because it does require risk.
Yeah. And there's a learning curve to it, right? You don't want to lose your shirt, because like you said, if you screw up right in the beginning, there goes the entire business.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And also, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but if you offset
Hmm.
and then I want to pick up some books from you as a dealer or for a comic shop, now you can give me a better price.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I think people forget that I need to make a piece of this. So I sell on eBay. I'm moving into Whatnot. You heard it here first. But both of those places, so Whatnot takes
Yeah.
11.5%, eBay takes 13%.
Okay.
So Whatnot and eBay are beyond similar. I think Whatnot might even take 12%. So they take 11, and then there's like a 2.5 to 3% credit card processing fee.
Okay.
So 11 to 13% is not going to make or break me one way or the other. The reason why you'd go to Whatnot is that it's live sales, and eBay is a different beast. They're both useful, but the point is that if I need to have enough meat on the bone as a seller and as a reseller, so when somebody says my book has a value of MSRP and I want to sell it to you for $15, there's no money for me in that trade. Most people have to realize that if you have your book trades for $20, the most I can buy it for is 10. And even at 10, there's very little money for me to buy your book. I'm looking at 750 because I need enough money to make $5 on it. And when I go and I look at people on Kickstarter, I think that's a real problem, that they don't seem to understand that if I want to pick up 10 of your books, this doesn't work. Your price point doesn't work for me as a store. It works for you on Kickstarter, but do you want to hit my audience, which is on the outskirts in the Bronx? See what I did there? See what I did there?
Bringing it back, baby. Bringing it back. But yeah, one of the things I mean, I hope I'm wrong with this, but I think there's a lot of people in crowdfunding, not just Kickstarter, that are looking to make money on the launch, right? And that does not bode well for those who are coming in.
You just said something very interesting. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you a crowdfunder or are you a business?
Mm. The answer in a few months will definitely be a business.
You
But
understood
right
the
now,
question, right? I mean, you
yeah,
understood what I'm asking, right?
yeah,
So I'm a business, right? So
yeah,
my business is Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. So my business is selling comics. eBay is a platform for me.
right.
So the business on Whatnot and the business on eBay and the business on Facebook Marketplace and the business at a con are all the same business components. My procurement process doesn't change. The distribution of me selling at a con is slightly different than me selling on eBay. That's slightly different than me selling on Whatnot. That's slightly different than selling on eBay Marketplace or
Right.
Facebook Marketplace. The delivery system and those four platforms are all different on how the product is sold, but
Yeah.
the inner workings of the business are not. And so that's why I asked this, because if you're just a crowdfunder and you're producing a comic, the comic is the product. The comic isn't the business. Let's be realistic here. The comic is not the business. The comic is the product. If you're a publisher, that's the business by definition. So, and then Kickstarter is just a platform. So if you're just a crowdfunder, that means that you are just that. There's nothing wrong with that. You're producing a comic. But if you're a business, you're using Kickstarter to distribute or gain funds to launch a product because for whatever reason you find it to be the most advantageous position to do so, or the cleanest, cheapest, most affordable way how to do it. And that's the difference. So that's why I asked the question, because you said people are trying to make money in the launch. But if that means you're not a business. That means that your business model, you're automatically thinking that it's be all or end all on Kickstarter, and that means that you're a crowdfunder. You're not a business.
And that's not the case, because there's layers, there's different aspects to this.
I understand. No. It's a thought process,
Yeah.
meaning that we need, if this community needs to start thinking, saying, I'm a business. I want to make money in my launch, but I don't want that to be the main focus.
Right.
This should be that I want to make 20 grand on my campaign. It's going to cost me 12 grand to do it, but then I'm going to be printing all the cover A's and I'm going to be printing 1,000 or 3,000 offset cover A's. Now you're a business.
Right. And that's one of the aspects that so many people in crowdfunding don't understand, right? They don't think like it's a business. They don't. And unfortunately, that will end up biting so many of them in the ass in the end.
Yeah, I ask a controversial question because this is what I'm seeing, and this is where I think it's failing. Because if people thought like it was a business, we would have B2B relationships with people like me. And a lot of people would want to have those relationships and they would ask. And I see it all the time where I'm like, I'm interested in a retail package. Do you have one for me? So it's like, oh, I only deal with comic shops. I'm like, okay, I will go find somebody who wants to deal directly with me.
No, you want to buy my product? Fuck yeah, we're gonna make a deal, right? If you want to go beyond what the initial parameters are, yeah, we could do a fucking deal. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying the royal you, right?
I've asked and I've gotten rejected.
Really?
I found it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? Your house. No worries. Then I go knock on somebody's door. Yeah, man. What do you want to do, man? I'm going to take care of you. What do you want to do? Somebody's like, yeah, no problem. Let's do it.
At least find out if you can make the numbers work. You know what I mean? If you can't, okay, then you can't. But at least you're taking a chance.
We didn't get to that far. We didn't get that far.
I
said, hey, I noticed you have a retail tier. And look, sometimes I understand that it doesn't work, right? I understand that somebody needs an IEN number and things like that, and everything is different. But even still, I say, cool, you're not requiring that. I want 10 of your books. This is what I want. Can we make it work? Everybody's like, oh, no, I don't deal with comic shops. I'm like, okay. I'm like, no problem. I'll just happy buy my little Steph Wilson over there. You have a nice day.
No, you want to make it work? We'll make it work. We'll make it work. We'll find a way to make it work. You know? I don't get it. But then again, you know what? They may not be doing offset printing, right? And they can't make the numbers work, or they haven't taken the time to figure out how to make the numbers work.
It wasn't even a numbers conversation. They didn't like that. They didn't want that.
Yeah, but no, maybe they don't even know how to think that way.
What it was is that the person didn't like the fact that I didn't have a brick and mortar store. And that's what was mind-boggling to me, is that I'm like, hey, here's my eBay store. Here's what I do. Here's my link. Can we work something out? And the person's like, yeah, I only sell to comic stores. I'm like,
all right. You know who else didn't have a brick and mortar store? DCBS. And look at where they're at right now. All right. You know who else didn't have a comic book store? The person who started the direct fucking market. Okay. It's funny because at New York Comic Con, I sat in on a panel from being hosted by Milton Greep, who owns ICV2, who was one of the top 2 distributors during the big years of comic book distribution. He owned Capital City Distribution, and he hosted a panel with himself, Paul Levitz, former DC publisher, and Jim Shooter, former Marvel Comics publisher. And they were talking about the inception of the direct market. And it was Jim Shooter that started speaking about this. And he was looking at the monthly breakdown of where the numbers were at. And he was looking at the newsstand numbers and something else. And then he noticed a name. I forgot the name. For the historians out there, you know who I'm talking about. I just forgot his name. But Jim Shooter noticed the name on the ledger, right? And the director of sales at Marvel was like, oh, we sell to this person. And he sends books to a certain amount of shops, right? Or whatever, spinner racks or pharmacies, wherever the case was. And he was like, okay, so let's see how many more he wants to get. And from there, this guy started to expand, and then Marvel Comics and DC Comics, I don't want to say worked hand in hand with the gentleman who started the direct market distribution system, but they gave him support, right? They started what they called the cash register program, and they noticed that there were shops out there that were collecting money in the little tin box, right? And if they were ordering books from this guy, they were floating them fucking cash registers so they could start to build a store around that. But again, right, he did not have a brick and mortar shop. And look at what that blossomed into from the 60s.
It's
right?
fine. People who sell directly to me and wholesale to me don't have a problem with it, and I'm going to do just fine with their books, just fine. And you know what it is? It's if you don't want to do it and you don't want to be part of it, I'm like, cool.
I got one guy in the Carolinas, right, who buys for me, a batch. I got one guy in the West Coast who buys for me in a batch, right, because there are small boutique distributors who have a certain number of shops or spinner racks and pharmacies and XYZ that they got to fill. No problem. You want my books on your racks and you want me to give you a wholesale number? You got it. Let's see what can work. Plain and simple.
No, it is what it is. And it's also, though, where I'm at is that, look, I got 5 minutes, and if you make my life hell in 5 minutes or less, I'm probably not going to do business with you because it's too complicated when I have options. Let
me run this back a second. I'm sorry, Andrew. If you make your life a living hell in 5 minutes or less, you're not going to do business with you. But if you got $1 in a dream, you'll put it on the Knicks, right? To see how much stress.
No. My point is that if I say, hey, I'm interested in retail, I have an eBay shop, and you say, oh, I don't sell to eBay shops, I'm like, okay, cool. We've gotten to the end of the line in 5 minutes or less. Meaning that if somebody says, oh, I'm interested, please send me your link to your eBay store. That's what I mean, where if we get to the end of the line in a 2-minute conversation and it is crystal clear to me that you're not willing to budge and your line is, oh, I don't sell to eBay shops, the relationship is done. Because you've made it crystal clear that you're not willing to move on your thought process. If you say, hey, I'm hemming and hawing, I would like to see what your sales look like. I want to make sure you're a legitimate shop. How do you sell your books? Where else? That's not making my life a living hell. You're asking me legit questions. But if you're fucking around with me when I'm giving you information and you're saying, well, we're thinking about it and give us a week, and after a while, because that's happened too. That's happened too. I mean, I've been doing this in the last 9 months, and I've gotten every answer. Somebody's like, yeah, Drew, what do you want to do? Like, well, I've also gotten people saying
a week is bullshit. If you're at a convention, right, and it's the last hour of the day at the convention, right, the last hour of the last day at the convention, and you got a shop or you boutique distributor, and you could offer me 40%, anywhere between 40 to 45% for everything that I've got left on the table. Ta-da! Take it, baby. All yours. All fucking yours, man. That does not take a week, right, to come up with the answer to those kind of numbers to see what can happen. Nah, they're pulling your leg, bro.
That's why I say this is where I'm at. And I've dealt with all this. I've also dealt with things where people have been like, here's my numbers. This is what I can do. And I've also dealt with people who have said, I need you to order 50. And I'm like, I can order 25. And then now we're negotiating, which is a different discussion completely. But I digress. But I've dealt with this in the last 9 months, and I've gotten every answer. And that's why it's beyond frustrating. And I can tell within probably 3 or 4 minutes now that I don't think this is going to go well. And maybe I'm wrong 20% of the time, but those 20% that I might miss, at least I'm not spending an hour playing around with it. But it's very frustrating.
Right. You do or you don't. You want to hit your funding goal? Okay. That's it.
Look, do you want to hit your funding goal? Yes or no? Okay. That's where we're at.
That's it, man. As long as I'm turning a profit, right? Better than 25% per unit, right? Again, hopefully you'd like to get 40. But shit, fucking pull the trigger, man. Pull the fucking trigger. I don't know.
I like that. I can start using that. Do you want to make your profit funding goal? Yes or no?
That's it, man.
Especially if somebody's like $100 short. That's when you use it, right?
Oh yeah, like me, man. I'm fucking sweating. You know,
let's talk about that too. Let's talk about that, because this is what's interesting is that, and I'm gonna say this in the nicest way, the last 2 campaigns have not been easy roads for you.
Yeah, man.
And I say this out of hate, not love. No, I say that in a place of love. But and right now, Kickstarter has, I think, 320 projects and comics on it. It's the holiday season. I mean, I could tell you that I am economically tapped out right now.
A lot of people are.
Right? I'm economically tapped out for a different reason, where I just went through like a $23,000 comic book business expansion in the last 9 months. I am really economically tapped out. But I know a lot of people are terrified of the economy. There's a lot of questions. We're going to figure out what the hell is going on in about 3 weeks, everybody, because if Black Friday is really good, then we're probably on for a bull run in the economy. If Black Friday flops below what it did last year, we are on a bear run.
Well, I listened to a podcast called the Remarkable Retail Podcast, and they are every week going over numbers in retail. Talking about what's hitting, what's not hitting, what's flattened out. They love to talk about the magical unicorns, right? Those startups that blow up out of nowhere and then fizzle off in a few months. But if we talk numbers directed at me, I've had about 800 people over the course of all of my campaigns, 800 different people, almost, right? About 786 back my campaigns, right? Of that, only about 5% have returned for this campaign. Of the people on this campaign, only 10 of them are brand new backers. I set my funding goal lower than the last one, which is also lower than the one before that.
So I'm gonna ask a few questions on this.
Oh shoot!
Because me and a bunch of people have had discussions about this. Is that there's a lot of product out there. Yep. Is one. 2, people feel that maybe they don't like a book or 2. After the second or third issue, they say, "Fuck this book," right? Not yours. I didn't read.
No, but it happens. It happens. It's okay.
I'm not saying it about you specifically, so hopefully you won't get offended too much, or maybe you will. I don't know. 3 people say, "Look, this is. I gave 1 a try. I gave 2 a try, and this is just horrendous writing. The art's not good. Whatever it is, because that happens too." Or what 4 happens is somebody says, "Look, I'm sick of comics, man. I'm burned out." Because I think what's going on right now is that I think we're at the end of a cycle with movies. And I think movies and shows for the last 12 years, because the Marvel MCU started in 2008. This has been a 15-year run. And I think we are at the end of the cycle. I think there's been a lot of money that's been propped up into mainstream comics with these movies. Okay. And then I think now that ultimately has trickled down to indies, has trickled down to the interest in indies and Image and some foreign stuff, for lack of a better word here. And I think that main source of money that's trickled down is slowly drying up. And I think ultimately it is affecting comics collectively, because I think they're coming out of style. Not everything, but I've seen it. And I'm feeling it in my business. Not everything, where good product will still be around, but I have a feeling we're going to be in a correction where I that's just my take. And I think that's what I think is happening. And I think Kickstarter in the next 6 months to a year is in for a rude awakening. I really do.
And I've always said
that's my investment position on it. That's how I feel as an investor.
You gotta be prepared to adapt, right? You need to have 1 foot ready to pivot.
But I think so. I'll give you a position on Zenoscope. I think Zenoscope is struggling a little bit with comics. Rafa's coming on next week. They have about 20 good books a year right now that are the books, which is good. I mean, like they just had one for Halloween. It was the book to buy. There was actually 2. A limited showcase 25 for $75 by Michael Marat from Zenoscope is the book to buy. 25 limited $75 book from Zenoscope is unheard of. That book should be like $300 easy.
Really?
Anyway, maybe 150. If I'm being reasonable pricing today. But what's working for them really well is trading cards.
Okay, I remember you saying that last time. Yeah. If I got a pivot, we do trading cards, right? We filled out with every campaign. We do trading cards. So, I've had 50 hit the air, right? And we have enough with premium cards to complete 100 card set. Do I do that? Right? Do I do, you were talking about pins earlier. We're doing pins now too. We got a great place to order pins. They did very well for us at New York Comic Con. Can we go through a nice little pin campaign to add to our bottom line? I like pins at conventions too, because you can fill up a lot in a little bit of space, and it's not gonna take up a lot of room when you're traveling, and you could turn around a good chunk of money for that. Am I gonna say that is going to be my complete business frame out to just focus on
straight to pins?
No, but it's going to add to our bottom line. Yeah. So we're going to keep looking at that. But doing a pin only campaign is definitely in the future for us. Shoot, man, those fake pin people go bananas, bro. They're as bad as Pops. I was like, holy shit, dude. Right? And it's like, the wife likes Ahsoka. I didn't get to them until the last 2 days. So I saw an Ahsoka pin, and I was like, oh, you got him. He was like, well, we sold out. Now, I know a lot of these booths sell out for the day, right? And the next day they re-up. No, they had sold out of everything. I'm like, damn. So here I am looking at the pin, and I'm like, all right, I'll get it for the wife for Christmas. It's a nice little stocking stuffer. This shit is $95 on eBay already, bro. And it was $20 at the convention. I'm like, oh my God. I'm not going to try to figure out that game or anything like that. But God damn. Damn.
It's a big business. It's a big business.
Yeah,
and
man.
I know because I play in it and I've made money and I know how expensive this stuff is, and it gets ridiculous.
Yeah, shit.
But
Yeah,
it is
and
what
they
it
got
is.
their own website to rate their pins and show who's out there, who has them, the numbers. And I'm like, God damn it, guys.
I love this business and I love it, and I margin and there's so much money to be made, and I made a small fortune doing this.
Good. I'm glad.
And I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue, but I do know you have to get out of here because you have a business problem to solve.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
No, it's not. But yes,
I'm sure you'd much rather hang out with me. But anyway. But hey, it could be arranged. I do comic book hangouts all the time. But it's gonna be fun. November 10th is gonna be a fun one for everybody. We're gonna talk about how to save comics. You should come for that one.
I got to go to Legion's Con in Jersey that Saturday. So depending on what happens, leave the link open for me, right? Because there's some things that are going down
Fair enough.
At New York Comic Con that I got to take care of Allegiance.
Fair enough. But I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. So where could people find you, bother you, hit up the campaign. And I know we didn't get to talk about a bunch of stuff, but I'm sure you'll be back again at some point.
Yeah, right. I got no problem coming back. I like hanging out with you. Maybe the 10th. Let's see what time I come back from Legion's Con. So you can always find me at unstoppablecomics.com. All of our social media links are on the website, so you can get a hold of us through there on that. And then for the next, I guess, week and a half, we are still live on Kickstarter with New York versus the World issues number 1 through 3. You can pick up comics, you can pick up t-shirts, you can pick up pins like we just talked about. You can pick up a few other things. And if you're in a position to do so and help us out, all right, cool. If not, maybe share it with a friend of yours that is into zombie comics.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm going to just say it again and again and again. You have to support indie. What that means is backing campaigns, throwing $1, throwing $100. It goes a long, long way.
It does. It does.
It's extremely helpful. And then also following people on social media, sharing out campaigns, telling people about it. That also helps tremendously. And it is greatly appreciated by a lot of people.
Yeah, right.
And then as far as I'm concerned, because I'm going to promote myself, obviously, I have these. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one of these. They're fun. Who orders from my eBay store? Big, small. You could order a $5 item, or you could order like a $300 item. It's all up to you. And again, this one as well in a hollow foil. There's only 15 of them. I have all 15. So if you want number 1, you can get number 1. Or if you want number 13, I can hook you up with that one too. So check that out on my eBay store in the description down below. And then my social media is Pop Anime Comics on Twitter /X, on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics, Facebook, Pop Anime Comics, YouTube. Please subscribe. It means a lot to me. I got so much content. I got almost like 700 interviews up. So there is an interview for everyone, and you never know who is coming on my show. And so just keep that in mind, everybody. And so that's everything I got, and I appreciate everything. So yeah, that's everything I got, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Buy comics, buy independent comics, and share them with your friends.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.